Hi, everyone. Welcome to High Vibin with Hilary and Rev Rob. And today we have a special guest, Alice Soluri, and she is somebody who's watched all of our videos and is very educated in all things spiritual. And we wanted to bring her on to summarize what she thought of all of the videos and maybe add some comments that possibly you guys are thinking too. So welcome, Alice.
Hey, thank you. Good to see you.
Alice is our first super fan. Thank you so much, Alice.
You're welcome.
And Alice was really wonderful. One of the things that she did is she went through each of the videos and she found a common thread, one that we definitely want to talk about today. We're going to review each of the videos. But one of the things that she pointed out was that there's the common thread is all about being present and paying attention and being aware. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on after we go through all of the different classes, but that is the common thread. So take it away, Rob.
So we started way back when. I don't even know when our first episode was, but it seems like we've been doing this forever, and that has gone by quickly. But we started with the basic, which is we are all connected. Now, we might have heard this in our various spiritual practices, but really kind of explored what that meant. So I know for me, it's always easy to know and understand we are all connected when I'm sitting in a sacred space, or when I'm with people that are like-minded, or when I'm going to a place where we are all there for the same reason. But it is the understanding of we are all connected when I am behind the wheel of a car or standing in line at the supermarket with somebody who seems to be taking a lot of time. So I feel like that's where we began to talk about what that really means and how all beings in the universe have a common thread and what that thread is. So, and it's probably one of our most challenging ones to start off with, about being connected. So, Alice, you had some great notes about this. What did you think?
So the key points that I picked up on is in being all connected, that we should, or not should, but that we love all. This can be very challenging. I think that's what you're referring to, Rob. But there was an interesting comment that I believe Rob might have made, that was be aware of when you're not feeling the love. That is something that that makes me laugh, because that's a common term of mine. Is when I'm getting frustrated, I'll say, I'm not feeling the love here. And, maybe that's a nice little break for you to kind of remove yourself and be present. I have another quote of mine that is, everybody's doing the best that they can. And I think you guys might have brought that up. It's hard to remember that. I've had, that's something that I've worked with in terms of accepting other people, especially when I don't see where they're coming from. But I've also coached some people very close to me to try to work with that in order to really give people a little bit of space to be who they are, especially when their behaviors are frustrating you, and just remembering that they're doing the best they can. And that's what I've got from that one.
Good. And I would like to add then to that everybody's doing the best they can, including whoever's watching or listening today. So, we are all trying and working on, living this life where we feel more connected, more elevated to each other and to spirit. So that means that, if I know I can let things get to me quickly, and if they do, and you catch it and you are aware in that moment, then you're doing the best that you can in those moments as well. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so the next video that we recorded was on Synchronicity Magic, and it was the whole idea that everything is synchronistic, and that really there is no coincidence, and things that happen for a reason, and to be open to these possibilities and then act on them when they happen. For instance, when you see repeating numbers, when you hear a song again and again, when you bump into somebody over and over, a book that falls off the bookshelf, these are all synchronistic things. So Alice, what did you think about that video?
The key points I walked away with that one, paying attention to catching those synchronistic moments. That's very key. I think that was a great reminder. Um, and then actually for me with synchronicity, that is something that I paid attention to. And what I found challenging recently is when I had two synchronous moments come up sort of at the same time, and then trying to decide which one I was going to move on. Because one was more on the professional and moving myself possibly forward professionally. It was a class that kind of came up that I was interested in. But then my family was together, and they were sort of making plans for an outing that I didn't know about. And it was exactly at this time. And sometimes I can be hardcore and choose like the professional if I feel like I have to do it. But for that one, what I really did was I went inside and I just got quiet and listened to my heart. And I thought, if I didn't have another day, which one would I have rather done? And it would be with my family. So I let the other one go. And the good news is it's on recording. So I get to listen to it on recording. So I didn't really miss it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Alice brings up a good point with synchronicity. When you're not sure, you have to go inside and feel and check in and make your decision based on what you feel in your heart, which it sounds like that's what she did. And you have to be brave, to move forward in these moments. It's not always easy. And the good news is it's no pressure. If you don't, you'll be given another opportunity and another one and another one. Yeah. So Rob, the next one was on ego.
So ego. I have been in a personal soapbox in support of the ego for a few weeks now. And it is because, as I said, episode, if you begin to read, especially New Age or New Thought texts that exist now, a lot of people are talking about, kind of squelching the ego, or I read an essay about killing the ego, which feels so utterly counterproductive and really counterintuitive. I felt like we have been, as kind of New Thought people, using the ego the same way that more conservative or fundamentalists are using the devil. Like the ego is doing this to me. The ego is the one that is feeding me all this negativity, and the ego is the one to be, again, squelched or avoided or even killed. But I really feel like this is the point. This is the invitation that we have, if we can expand our thinking about the ego to be inclusive of what the ego has to say to us in those times where it might be feeding us information that is purely protective. So do I have a voice in my head that might be limiting how I might be approaching a situation? Absolutely. Does that voice try to trick me and to make me maybe stay safe, or to keep me in my comfort zone? Of course, because it was likely formed from other people's voices, and it was likely formed to protect me from the age I was able to understand what was going on. So my feeling has always been, what if I invited that ego to actually have its word with me, if I allowed that ego to express itself with me, and really finding that if I listen to what it has to say, and kind of I can weed out the stuff that doesn't make sense, or that seems like it's not real, or it's trickery, and I can then choose to see the love and the protection that the ego has, and then thereby kind of make the ego more, integrate it more with who I am as a total person. So I think there's working with the ego, seeing what the truth is for yourself and what the ego has to say. But for me, that week was really all about incorporating part of who we are into our totality, rather than segmenting it out and perhaps even eliminating it from ourselves. So I think there's a way to work with the ego, and there's a way to love the ego as a part of who we are.
That was a really good summary, actually, because I think you hit pretty much all the key points that I remember from that episode. And I loved this episode because this was a concept for me in terms of really befriending the ego, loving the ego, and working with the ego or watching the ego with compassion. And I really like that. You know, I kind of look at ego as sort of like our human earthly burden that we carry. And I really like the idea of, you know, accepting it, loving it, loving it, you know, because it is there. It's one of our survival instincts that we have. So I think you pretty much summed up a lot of what I had highlighted. And then I think that another really key point, I'll just repeat, but you said it, was really acknowledging it so that you're accepting all of you. And, you know, that's just so important.
Yeah, if we're going to say that we are perfect, whole, and complete, if we're going to, you know, stake this claim that we are all connected, that we are all part of the greater energy, then that part is part of us as well. Separating it out and, you know, marginalizing it or hating it in some way, or creating that hatred for it or that fear of it is going to be counterproductive. So thank you for enjoying that week. It was a fun week.
Yeah.
Okay. And the next one that we did was called Boundaries Are Necessary. This was the whole idea that you have to take care of yourself first, and then before you can take care of anyone else. And we talked about the example of, you know, you're on an airplane and they say to the parents, you know, make sure you put your mask on your face first before you put on your child's mask, on your child's face. And the idea that it's not selfish to take care of ourselves. And at the time, I think I said something like, if you're asking the question, am I being selfish? Chances are you're not, because just by the fact that you're even asking the question shows that you're concerned and you really just are taking care of self first. Alice, did you have any thoughts on that?
I did. So this is one where paying attention. There are a couple of different topics that you guys had that you were talking about, not responding. And I think that is a big key to really try to take away, is if you pause and just don't respond first, it just might help you make a better decision about how you're going to respond or react to something. The other thing, and I guess you're delaying your response is let me get back to you. I like that. There's an affirmation that you had in that one that I really liked. It's not my business how others see me. And that is, I think that really helps you to become more practiced in boundaries, because it's hard at first doing that kind of thing. And I think that's something that I've spent some time practicing. So I think that was a key point.
Yeah. And, you know, when you create boundaries for yourself, you are not just allowing yourself to, not just taking care of yourself, you end up helping the other person to heal. Because when we don't create boundaries and people walk all over, when people walk all over us, it doesn't serve them either. So by having boundaries, it causes and forces them to be more accountable for themselves. So, all right. So next one.
So we had judgment. And so this is one that I feel like when we say I've been judgmental, when we come to the understanding that we are being judgmental about something, we then start to automatically chastise ourselves, beat up ourselves for that judgment. Once again, I'm about making friends with these things that we might have been using as kind of weapons against ourselves. But it's a survival instinct. You know, we do learn to be discerning. We do learn to judge. You know, ancestrally, we've learned to judge this to survive. So I think creating snap judgments is something that we all do automatically. Also, we are living in a world where we are all very much compartmentalized by data. So we know this for a fact. We are all lumped into algorithms of groups and interests and likes. So the world is doing it at a time that we're also saying, let's not do this to one another. So I think it's a matter of resolving this, learning that having a judgment or an opinion or something is instinctual. Acting on it or responding to it in a way that is negative for you or for somebody else, that's the part where we have the choice. So I'm going to feel judgments that might be historically based or might be based on a lot of implicit information that I may be holding on to when someone walks into a room or when I walk into a room. But it's going to be and that's interesting that that I'm feeling this way. I'm curious as to why I might have these feelings, but what can I learn from them? What can I garner from them as I move forward?
Yeah. So, yeah. One of the big things that I thought was a really good point is allowing judgment to be more of an observation rather than a conclusion of somebody doing something wrong or being bad. Judgment is also another thing that many years ago I became aware of and really tried to change my perspective on. And I mean, it opens up your world. It changes, it makes your world lighter, is what I think. The other thing that I thought that was really interesting from your discussion was when judgment comes in, personal judgment, not being judgment being laid on you, but personal judgment is stopping to ask, why am I being triggered? And what's the feeling behind this? Because it also, especially if it's something that happens repeatedly, again, it might be a way to look at those questions and then be able to find an area of acceptance if this is something happening repeatedly.
Stuff. It does require presence. Again, I want to reiterate that any of these things that we talked about or any conclusions or any sort of insights that we have come to, they're because we are working with them and on them, not because I feel in any way I've mastered judgment. It is really that I'm aware all the time, as you said, Alice, that these are happening to me. And sometimes I've got to really I have to work even harder to stop in that moment and say, wow, why am I feeling this way? I tend to be kind of an envious person. And so I got to stop every time and go, or a jealous person, and really see what that means. Why that bothers me or what I am, what's filling in me to feel that envy. So, but it's a struggle.
Yeah.
And we all are a work in progress here with all of our talks that we've talked about these past few, I guess, been months now. Rob and I have always said, like, just because we're saying this doesn't mean we're doing it. We're trying. And so the next one was, the next video was on self-care versus selfishness, which is really similar to the one I just talked about on boundaries. Unfortunately, sometimes in our society, it looks selfish when you're taking care of yourself. It's like frowned upon. But the reality is, unless you have negative intention for someone else or something else, it's all good. You have to take care of yourself, just like the boundaries. You have to put yourself first so that then you can be everything else for the rest of the world. What were your thoughts on that, Alice?
Well, just a personal thought is I'm in the healthcare field, and this is a really, really key point, this whole self-care, because again, you can't take care of someone else unless you're, taking care of yourself, energized, you have enough energy to do it. So points that I got from it that I really liked is knowing what will nourish you and what will deplete you. I thought that was a really nice awareness. Talking about how it's not just physical and material self-care, that it can also be nourishing the spirit. And also probably finding that you're doing both, because I don't think I lean as much toward the physical as the spiritual self-care. So I think paying attention to both of those, that was a good point. There was a really interesting conversation about how self-care may not be present or pleasant. And I can definitely relate to that one. And then the summary you guys had with that one, which I felt was pretty important, is no one else can take care of you. It's only you know what you need, and it's up to you to do it. And so I think that that's really important, just in terms of not, pushing your expectations on other people for your self-care.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Something to add that I was thinking about that I do every morning. I meditate laying in bed. That's just how I do it. There's my honest answer. And I do a body scan every morning as I'm meditating to sort of see where things are stuck. To feel it on my right side. So we talk a lot with self-care about the emotional side of it. There is very much the physical side, which I feel like, Rob, you and I didn't really touch on too much in our discussion, but, equally just as important. And when I felt that pain in my side, I was thinking, what did I eat last night? Because I know that I have gallstones and it must have flared it up. And okay, so today I'm going to, eat something a little milder and perhaps healthier for me. So that's another, just another thing that came to me about self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we wrapped up, our penultimate episode was the one about offense and being hurt. And this was really emphasized with me through the book that I have talked about for several weeks now, Pam Grout's The Course in Miracles Experiment. And she had this passage in there that said, no one can hurt me. No one can make me upset. No one can make me mad. And I thought that was so powerful, because I have had that experience of knowing what that meant in the moment. When you really understand that, when you know yourself, when you are secure with yourself, when you know who you are, then by, kind of by the law, that you cannot be hurt. So it isn't like Hilary used the rubber and glue, whatever I say, bounces off and sticks to you. So, but it's less about what other people are saying to you, and more about what has power over you. When you know, when you are secure, when you feel confident about something, then you know what it feels like if somebody says something that might be contrary to that, and you know what it feels like to say, I don't think, wow, it's amazing that you think that, or that's interesting that you think that, but I know that that's not true for me. So I think it's a matter of when we feel that, I call it that kind of pearl clutching time, when someone says something to us or prefaces by saying no offense, but usually means get ready. But I think that means just absorbing and being interested in what others might be saying to you or sharing with you, but knowing that, look, when we know who we are, whatever it is that something is saying, somebody's saying to me, or something is coming at me, I can't be hurt by it, because I know me, I know what I need and what is true for me. So, I think that's daily application of something that we probably all experience, many times throughout a day. Feeling like, oh, how could they say that? Or I can't believe what, whenever I feel like there's this, I can't believe feeling, that's when it gets triggered. So Alice, what'd you think?
I really love the no one can, upset me, make me mad, hurt me. It's a tough one to really wrap your brain around, but I think that when you're not talking about very extreme abusive situations,
of course,
it's true. And again, if you can really find some belief in that, it makes your life lighter, is my feeling. So I actually really enjoyed that discussion on that. Some things basically that you guys brought up that I thought were important is recognizing your reaction. So recognizing, as you were saying, if the chest gets tight or you can feel the, okay, here comes a zinger. And then I believe there was kind of some actions which were try to do more of a response, which again is the pausing and really thinking about what was said. Is it true? Is it not said? Is it not true? Because sometimes it might be true, and that's why it's offensive. And what do we do with that? And if it's not true, then you let it roll. I also think that, for me, something that I've been working on is trying not to be offended, trying not to take things personally, even though it might be a dig at me. If it's not true, then it can just keep going. It doesn't actually matter. That's that person's stuff, not mine. So I think that's an important lesson to take from that.
Because if it's not true, you can move on. If it is true, then you can consciously choose to work on it. If it means something, then you can also take that and not, be prideful. You can just take it for what it is and work on it if it resonates. So, yes.
Yeah.
Very much easier said than done often, but.
I have to say, my friend Alice here is very Zen. She is very good about stopping and witnessing and all of those things. She really puts it into practice. I've experienced it. It's pretty cool. So goals, Alice.
That's right. We're all working always.
Yes.
And so our last class was It's Already Yours, and it was all about manifesting and how to manifest. We're all creator beings. We're all here to create. So we have to think big. Don't limit yourself. Don't minimize your dream. And we talked about the steps. Know what you want, create a vision, spend time every day dreaming or visualizing, do the work, take steps forward, act on hints from the universe, and let it go and give it to God. Because at that point, you've done everything you can do. Thoughts?
This is a favorite topic of mine. This is actually something that since I've been doing classes with you, Hilary, that really blossomed my desire to practice manifesting more. It's always been something in my life, and I've always known that I've done it. But it's just been fun to really look at it a little deeper and then try to challenge myself even more. So I do have some fun manifesting events occasionally that are a little surprising. But I think, like, as you were saying, we're meant to create. I mean, that's part of what we're here. That was such a huge point that I thought was so important. And then, be light about it and know it's coming. I really liked that comment, because what that said to me was, you put it out there, and just know that it's going to come. I mean, the time is where we get all caught up, because we are so time oriented. But just that reminder that it's coming, I really like that. Another one is, I think, when you were talking about deciding what it is you want, and it's all about getting quiet again, and it's all about hearing the inner self, and what do you want, what do you really want, what do you want to manifest. So I really liked that point. I felt like that was important for me. And then another one that was important for me was doing the work, and I liked the saying that nothing happens without doing something. And because what we do know is, if you sit back and do nothing, something's still going to happen, but it just might not be what you're intending. But I really like that one. And I think there's a balance in that. Hilary, we've talked about it many times, how I am much more slow to act in my manifesting world. Now, if I know something has to be jumped on right away, I will, but I'm more of a sit back and let it come together. And I think that being aware of timing and trying to pay attention to your timing and go with timing that is right for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. It's interesting. I saw a video on Steve Harvey. Have you guys ever seen Steve Harvey's story? Steve Harvey. It's pretty interesting. He's this famous guy, right? He's had a talk show, Family Feud he hosts. He's like
Okay.
anyway, he gave this talk on how he almost gave up, and he was like down to his last dollar, and he wasn't getting any gigs, and people were telling him to just get a job, and it was like a whole thing of how it happened, but it ended up that at the last possible second he ended up getting this gig at the Apollo, and he turned it into something massive in the way he did it, but he was down to his last $35. He didn't even have enough money to get to New York, to get to the Apollo, to do the comedy act. And he almost gave up because he didn't know what to do. He didn't have the money. And then literally like 2 days before the Apollo act, somebody in Florida, which is where he was living at the time, had asked him if he wanted to come and do a comedy gig there. He did it. He made, I don't know, like $90 or something. And he said he was so good. Could he come back tomorrow? And then he realized if he did those 2 gigs, he would then be able to have enough money to get himself to New York in time for the comedy gig at the Apollo, which he eventually became the host at the Apollo. And he talked a lot about that. A lot of people give up before the manifestation can happen. And that happens to us a lot. The universe doesn't know time. There's, what is time, right? So it could take, in human terms, a very long time for things to happen. But his point and thrust of the talk was don't give up, don't give up. The second you give up, it won't happen for you. And had he given up, he would have never been where he is now. So I just thought it was really interesting and something to think about when you manifest, because it is very easy to just be like, well, gosh, it's been like a year and nothing's happened, so I'm done, and it could be like right there. So anyway, that was just something that I happened to watch yesterday. I thought it was interesting. So, okay. We finished all the classes now, and now with our remaining time of about 15 minutes, wouldn't it be wonderful to talk about what Alice noticed, which I thought was so cool, to be aware, pay attention, and observe. Always the common thread in all of these videos, to be able to sit back and just witness. So I'd love to expand on that and have a discussion with the 3 of us on that, and start with you, Alice, on what you meant by all of that.
Well, it kept coming, like it was a common theme brought up in terms of whether you guys were speaking about this is how you deal with this, or just in your conversation, the comments you guys were making. This is also one of the reasons I might be more in tune. This is also a theme that's been coming up for me in my life, just reflecting what's going on, where I want to go. What's been coming to me a lot is just be present. Just be as present as you can. I'm in a very changing time in my life. Just be as present as you can and make your decision carefully and consciously. And so that's pretty much what I felt was being really brought home. And then, as I was saying to you guys when I was giving you feedback, to be present is like such an easy term to say, but actually can be challenging and can be complicated, even though it's so simple. It's just that we get in our own way so many times, and life, the outside gets in our way. So I thought it was an interesting topic to explore.
Yeah.
I think that when we're talking about that moment, I've said this often, I've said this probably in each one of those episodes, but when we learn these things and they resonate, there's still a point where a situation is going to come at us, and the way that we've always done it is going to require us to change. If it's coming at us, we have to take that information, all the stuff that we learned, every one of those, 10 insights, and to consciously apply it. So, and I know that this for me is where I get stuck, because something comes at me and now it's like, okay, I know all this stuff. But I oftentimes will choose in that moment to, I'm going to keep on with the whatever, despair or misery that I've chosen. But usually kind of smiling at myself, going that this is your choice now. So, but it's like, once you empower yourself at that point of change, then you can move forward. Okay, maybe I'll move forward and be miserable for 10 more minutes. Maybe I will, you can allow that to not, you choose the response. You are living your life rather than having your life live you in those moments. So, I think but it all happens in that moment. It all happens for all of them. It's in that moment where it's like, you feel that feeling and, you have to, if you're going to move forward with it, you got to choose differently this time. Anything.
Yeah, it's really tricky. It's tricky to teach ourselves, first of all, to pause and to not have knee-jerk reactions. I come from a very fiery family, and that was how you survived is, oh yeah, well, blah, 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 kind of thing. And it's so true, in all of these things that we've been talking about, like learning how to witness. It was something that I learned years ago in Buddhism, and I understand it intellectually completely, but putting it into practice is very tricky. And some days I get it right, and some days I stick my foot in it, and that's the journey. But it's so key. And the part about being present, it is tricky, and one of the things I wanted to offer is when I find that I am not being present, I will try to look around wherever I'm at and start naming things like, I see this, I hear this, because that will then get me back into the present moment, or I'll do some breath or whatever, take a walk. And I really think what Alice brought up is really probably the impetus for the next series of videos to really dissect presence. Because it sounds really easy, and it's a practice. I mean, I would not, some things is very easy to be present. You're at an amusement park, you're all about, the ride you're on, then you go to the next one, whatever. But, with these things, it can be very difficult to stay present. You get a text message and suddenly your mind is thinking, I gotta see that message or whatever. And then you're not in the conversation, or you're not part of what you were doing. So this is an incredibly important concept, all of those things. And I really appreciate Alice bringing that up, because I really do think, Rob, that this was the thrust of all of our talks, these three things: be aware, pay attention, and observe. That was what she said. Yeah.
Awareness is just a key. And because we do spend so much of our, because I know that even my friends, my closest friends, a lot of us, we spend a lot of time in our heads. Even if we spend time together, there's just a lot of stuff going on. And it's easy to allow ego, if you will, or those other voices to take us down a path and to not get out of it or not take a moment. Abraham Hicks, they talk about this emotional scale. So if you're feeling something, you don't try to go from despair to, elation, but you take that moment, like Hilary said, you look and see, okay, what's going to take me from despair to, annoyance or, just a little step at a time. So you're going to pet your pet, you're going to, get some love from your spouse, your kids, or you're going to, watch the flower that is blooming outside your yard. I mean, anything that's going to listen to that piece of music that you love, that's going to take you out of that feeling into a feeling that is not that. So you can work your way up rather than time to, try to find a way to be manic about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. For me, one of the big things that I do is nature. Like it just removes me, if I have the opportunity, if something big is going on, just really getting into nature can help me put things in perspective. And even just stopping back, like in the moment when you feel the stress or what we call like the trigger, is just saying, so this is going on, and just almost a conversation with yourself. So what is this about? And do I really have to answer this now? Do I have to even respond, and if not, maybe don't.
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, thanks, Alice. It's been really wonderful having you here, and we really appreciate, hearing your thoughts, because I think your thoughts represent a lot of the viewership, and I would love to have you on again.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're interested. Yeah, and I guess, Rob, there's not much else to say at this point, just that we finished our 10 classes now. This was our 10th one, and we're going to, revisit and figure out where we're going to go next. And I would love to invite the audience to send us any topical ideas. What would you like to see? What would you like less of? What would you like more of? Any comments? Certainly, please hit a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe, because we have got lots more to do, right?
Yeah, we've got lots more vibes to get high and to raise and to enjoy. So absolutely. Thank you, Alice, so much for your insights and the yeoman's work of reviewing all the videos again. So that is great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone, and much love to all of you.
We'll be back soon.
Bye.